Hello guys, do you remember me? I'm Orbiter, your Welsh engineer. Okay, and this is a tutorial on how to build a base on the Mun. Basically, I'm going to go through a couple of things that you need to know to build the base. Firstly, building, obviously. Just something, a simple lander, that's all you really need to land on the Mun. Getting to the Mun and landing on the Mun. Now that's the easiest part. The hard part is pinpoint landing. And also, I suppose we could do a series of this tutorial and get into scanning the Mun, mining for ore on the Mun, and perhaps other things you can think of, I don't know. Anyway, we'll get into this now. We've got the Mun view in our sights. So let's get building our first lander. Onto the baby. Da-da-da. Okay guys, so first thing you want to do is build just a simple lander. You don't need to have anything impressive, you just need something to, excuse my squeaking chair, to land on the Mun. For your first Kerbals, it's going to be the base of your base, perhaps a craft that you Kerbals can use to escape from the Mun and return to Kerbin, which is what we're going to do. So as with always everything, engineer rocket in reverse, first off a parachute, because you want to do the last thing first, and that's get back onto Kerbin. So you need the heat shield and parachute to the end of the atmosphere. Now, the thing that we want to do before that is land on the Mun. So yes, you get it, build a rocket. Okay, let's add a decoupler. Make sure you place the decoupler in the correct position, otherwise you won't get the fairing and it won't decouple properly. Now I'm going to build a simple lander. This is just going to be a fuel tank, a couple external fuel tanks to make the base of the lander a bit easier to land. So put symmetry to 4, so you put 4 decouplers on there, and then I'm going to use the small fuel tank on the side of there. We'll feed the fuel from the outer fuel tanks into the center fuel tank to make sure that they have enough fuel for landing and taking off, getting back to Kerbin, don't forget, because this is going to be our return craft as well. And also some fuel decks, as I said, to make sure that the fuel is fed from the outer tanks. Now looking at those fuel decks, they're probably going to clip the ladder that we're going to place on this craft, so let's put them on the other side of the tank. Okay, so that's set up, the tanks are set up. We need an engine now, and I suggest using the Poodle engine. This is high enough thrust to weight ratio for a Mun landing and returning. You don't need anything else, it's good enough for the job. See, if we change the thrust to weight ratio, we change the body to Mun, we get enough thrust to weight ratio on the Kerbal engine redux. And this is the only mod I'm going to be showing or using in this first part of the series. I may get into Mun Base or mods later on that you can use for Mun bases or any bases on any planet. Okay, here is important. Make sure you check to see if the landing legs are not going to be land under the rocket engine itself, so it doesn't clip and you don't damage it while landing. So in other words, make sure the landing legs are low enough. Okay, we also do not forget power, which I have done so many times in my mining the Mun series. Yes, that's what happens when you get tired doing these games. And some batteries to make sure we don't run out of juice while we're landing. Okay, now that's everything. That's your stock lander. That's all you really need. Let's add a ladder to make sure our Kerbals can get out. The ladders aren't required because you can use RCS packs on the Mun, but they do make for good visuals and they save your RCS fuel. Okay, so once you place it on the capsule, it seems to be at an angle, so I suggest to use the rotate tools to rotate it in a straight direction. Now use the offset tools. Now put the symmetry placing mode to not snap angle off, smooth symmetry, smooth placement mode. I can't think of the name. Okay, so once that's done, all we have to do now is place another ladder underneath to make sure the Kerbals can get to the ground, because that's not reaching the ground itself, is it? I'll put snap angle back on and extend ladder, make sure that it goes underneath and definitely will clip the ground of the Mun when you land. Awesome. Ladders are complete. The lander is fully fledged for landing. Now there's one thing I'm going to add to this, and that's nose cones, because what I'm not going to do is add a fairing over this lander while launching, because I feel that sometimes that can go awry and cause your rockets to flip from the extra weight. So I'll leave that out in this. You don't actually need it. In huge rockets, perhaps you do, but we can get away with it in this one. Okay, next thing we want to do is we need a stage for our lunar injection burn. Oh, sorry, Mooner injection burn. Sorry, Chaos Spears. That's blasphemy. We're in the wrong universe. Okay, so one little fuel tank there, which is, I think it's the 800, or I can't remember the name, sorry. And then the Poodle engine underneath that. Now, that'll be enough if you look at the Delta V. It's 1,624. I believe, having a look at the picture, we need about 860 meters per second minimum to get to the man, and 310 to get in orbit around the man. So that has more than plenty to get us there. Now that is done, I'm building the launcher stage. This is to get us into orbit around Kerbin. Nothing else. You don't really need anything more. And you need a minimum to get into orbit around the man, of Kerbin this time, of 3,300 meters per second. So we're going to over-engineer this just in case some of you guys have trouble getting into orbit. As you can see, I've used one of the X232 Rocco Max fuel tanks, and also one of the orange tanks, and a mainsail engine, because the mainsail engine has a good thrust weight ratio for getting to South Kerbin. Now, what I'm going to do here is set up asparagus staging. I'm not going to go into a full description of asparagus staging, but I suggest when you're doing asparagus staging, put 2 rockets on at the same time with 2 decouplers, 2 of the orange fuel tanks. I'm going to use the mainsail engine here as well, because that gives us a lot of power to play with when we're launching, so there's no underpower of getting into orbit. Make sure the staging is correct, by the way, because the main engine wasn't going to stage correctly. And don't forget your struts to make sure that your rocket boosters do not flop around. Hey presto. Now some nose cones. And the idea of just building 2 of the boosters at this time is so that we can copy them and place them in the correct stage. Now here we go. This is what I want to do. Hover over the decoupler. Hold down Alt, click the mouse button, you've copied it. Now don't attach to the rocket yet, put it aside. Now what you want to do, you can see stage 8 and stage 7s are the rockets that we copied. Now add 2 stages above them. Now select the copied booster, place it onto the rocket itself. And you can see, because we copied it in stage 7 and stage 8, they have now gone into stage 7 and stage 8. Now obviously you need the rockets to start the burn on the first stage, stage 9. So you can remove them, remove stage 8, and hey presto, asparagus staging is set up in the staging menu. All you have to do now is add the fuel ducts. So make sure you select the correct stages, which stage 8. Okay, that's them too. So keep note. Now we need the fuel ducts, the FTX2 fuel duct. Now place that from that orange tank to the next orange tank, and now we want to make sure that stage 7 is correct. Yeah, fuel duct from that to the center rocket. And basically, guys, that makes sure that your fuel tanks are full for when you're launching an asparagus stage, and when the other tanks are empty, giving you the most bang for your buck, the most Delta V you can. And that's the idea of asparagus staging. Okay, so now the asparagus station is set up. Let's steady the rocket by placing some struts, and no, they won't reach up to the top rocket. Okay, well, I think what we'll do is connect it to the lunar injection stage. Do it on both sides. Don't forget symmetry is set to 2, so you can't do 4 times symmetry to connect that up. Hey presto, we've built our rocket. All we have to do is add launch stability enhancers. Again, times 2 symmetry, so you have to do them individually. Put them in the correct stages. Otherwise you'll find your rocket falls before it launches. And hey presto, you are done. You are ready to start your Mun Base. Okay, so just check the Delta V. Yep, we got 3,993 for our launch stage to get into orbit. That is more than plenty. Okay, we've got enough then to get to the Mun, to deorbit and land, and hopefully we have enough for our Kerbal to return, just in case they want to. Right, guys, let's get to the launch pad and launch. Okay, guys, here we are. Let's launch. Okay, start off by going to engage your SAS and you're engaging your rockets. Obviously thrust down because those mainsail engines are going to give you a ridiculous amount of thrust to weight ratio, which means you're going to accelerate really fast. Now I'm fast forwarding the video and I'll talk about what I added to this rocket. I added some winglets to add extra control in the atmosphere, and I've also added some veneer engines. They act like RCS thrusters. I just put them on there just in case we have control failures during launch, but the mainsail engines with the gimbling and the extreme absolute awesome power will hopefully keep your rocket in control. Now I tried to do my trick of launching and setting the rocket to aim at prograde, but that didn't work out properly, so I had to switch to manually launching. Now hopefully guys, you know how to launch, you know how to get into orbit around Kerbin, and it doesn't matter you have a perfect orbit, just try to make sure you stay on the 90-degree angle on the orbit. That means pointing west, by the way, and then make sure you launch up and get to a 100-kilometer orbit roughly, or you could go higher or lower, just make sure you're in space. Okay, as you can see, someone complained about me showing or using maneuver nodes. Why not? This makes it easier for new people to see the maneuver node setup, and it's an awesome guide for even the most avid YouTubers. KSPers is what I meant. So yeah, don't just diss the maneuver node. It's a handy guide. Awesome stuff it is. Okay, so, and also I have to note that each rocket design is different, so the length of burn can change, and that varies in that, you know, you might burn a bit too late or a bit too early and mess up your orbit, especially if you're on a perfect orbit and you want to rendezvous with something which is in orbit around Kerbin. But we're not doing that, so let's get away to the man. Right guys, now we're in orbit, and yes, I've got the orbit stage still attached, so let's detach that. Yes, it's going to be space junk, but I don't care. This is a tutorial. If you want to get rid of your own space junk, I'll leave that to you. Anyway, let's get on to the man. So now that we're in orbit, we want to set our way onto the man. So I've already set the man as a target. All you have to do is right click on it and set as target, but line it up with the maneuver, with the orbit as it comes over the horizon. Create a maneuver node as the man would come over the horizon for the spacecraft, and just drag the prograde vector until you get your intercept. And yes, you might see it swap around a bit. Just keep on pulling the prograde vector until you get the pass on the right side of the man. And there's a good reason for that. That's because the rotation of the man goes in that direction, and that's why I always go in that direction, on that side of the man. Now, there's a couple of things to do. You can use the prograde and retrograde markers to adjust your orbit. I suggest getting to about a 50-kilometer orbit, or 50-kilometer periapsis in this case. See, 69, 64, 60. I think we'll stick with 60, and let's go and do this burn and then get into orbit around the man. So guys, here's a handy tip. When you're burning for the man, go into map viewer, especially when you're doing this for the first time, because what you can do, you can watch those numbers go down by the nav ball, your delta V required for the burn, but you can also keep an eye on the orbit visually. So you can actually influence your pass or your intercept of the man. So here we're close and killing maneuver node, and I'm just going to keep an eye on the periapsis. So yeah, here we go. As I said, it swaps around a bit, so let's carry on. I'm going to hit prograde here, and here we go. We got our pass 61 kilometers. That's awesome. That's easy to do as well. This makes the burn a bit easier and helps you to stay accurate as well. Anyway, we're off to the man. Yay! And there it is, in all its glory. We are heading there. Okay guys, so I don't think I have to show you how to get in orbit around the man. Well, if you're watching this, you'll learn anyway. I've done the quick fast forward video here because I shouldn't have to show you this. All you have to do is create maneuver node, go retrograde and follow maneuver node and thrust. Easy. Anybody can do it. As always, you can go to map view and make sure you get a nice perfect orbit or whatever else. Anyway, let's get landing. Now, some of you are going to think, where are we going to land? Where's the best place for the shops? Where's the best pubs? I don't know, but what I can tell you is the best places are probably the large craters. They have large, flatter areas. Some of them are off the equator landing areas. So what you can do, though, is you can land almost anywhere on the man. Mostly somewhere on the equator because that's the flattest areas. Do not try the north or south poles because they're really quite lumpy. And you don't want to end up tilting your craft over. One thing you do have to worry about, though, is the craters, because a lot of the small, even the large craters, have huge, and I mean huge, slopes on them, so you have to be careful. Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're going to plan our maneuver node, decide that we're going to land somewhere near this crater, and plan to go over that crater. So once you burn to slow down your speed for landing, you're going to end up somewhere over the top of the crater. Now I'm going to move the maneuver road over a bit more so that we get a bit more time to do our cancellation of our speed burn. That way we come straight down over the landing spot. Now this will be important for our pinpoint landing. However, do not worry the first time, because you're going to do a rough landing for your first base. Do not worry. This is going to be a trial and error method, probably for you guys. As for me, I've done this so many times for Mine of the Man that I wouldn't say I've perfected pinpoint landing, but I've got it out down to almost a T. But I'll show you a method next that might guarantee that you land almost in the same spot. Whether it works best for you or not, I'm not sure. In fact, this will be the first time I've used this technique. But first things first, we need to start our base, and this is what we're going to do. Let's land our first lander. Okay, so when you're doing your burn, stay in map view, I suggest that you do, and keep an eye on your trajectory as you're burning. Once you get it over the trajectory line of your maneuver node, cancel it. You don't have to be precise here. No, you don't. And obviously get rid of that Lunar injection stage. Now we don't need it, and this is a good point to do it at, because you can get rid of it. It's going to crash into the man while you're doing your burn for your landing. Now set the nav balls so the blue is on the top, which is the sky, and the brown is on the bottom, which is the ground. It makes it easier for you to visualize and set it for your landing. Okay, so now we're coming down. Here's the large crater you can see on the right. We're coming over, just going to kill our speed at when we're at 25 kilometers up, as you can see on the display on the top. And what we want to do is get that speed down below, well, 400. I put it down to 350. Let's accelerate time until we get to about just over 15 kilometers. Burn again. You can see we're reducing our orbit profile, and we now have to look for somewhere flat to land. We don't want to land in those two craters there, so we're gonna have to be careful of that, or on the too close to the edges. So what I'm going to do is fully burn here, get rid of our speed completely, and come straight down. Okay, so now that we're coming straight down, just make sure that we're not going to hit any of the edges of the craters, and just let yourself come down. You can obviously use time accelerate, but be careful you're not going too fast. And obviously kill your speed as you're coming down. Make sure that you judge the speed, the distance you are, and how long it's going to take to impact the surface. This is really hard when you first start off, but once you get used to it, it's easy enough. What I'm going to do by here, though, is try to keep us under, or close around 30 meters per second. As you can see, I've got altitude terrain in the top right, which I just showed you off. And when you're coming down for your final landing, as you can see by here, I'm trying to kill our sideways motion. We want to land at less than 7 meters per second, because over 7 meters per second, those landing legs are going to bust. And we're not doing landing on the man or bust. No, we are landing on the man for base. So here we are. I kill the speed down to 5 meters per second, and we've landed. Yes, the first part of the base is successfully landed. Now I'm going to skip the launch of the next one and come straight to pinpoint landing. This is the most the required part of building a base. It's pinpoint landing. It's hard, and we're going to try a new method with me. Okay, so now you've got your other craft in orbit around the Mun. Let's set the first lander as the target so you can use it on the nav ball and you know where to aim. This will be handy later on, but now let's create a maneuver node to at least get over the landing. Now don't forget, you'll need to burn on your way down to cancel your speed to land safely, so overshoot your target with a maneuver node. You can be about around this distance or perhaps a bit longer. But what you want to do is line up that orbit. You can see we need to put an inclination burn there, so we head over the top of the target, and that's very important. Now that your maneuver node is set up, you can time warp to your maneuver node, and I suggest that you use the visualization, the map view, to burn. That way you can line up the two lines and make sure you get roughly the trajectory you want. Now don't worry about the delta V and everything else. And also, once you've done that, just line up the orbit, both ends, and make sure that you're going over the top of your base. Hey presto, you've done your first burn. Now that is all done, don't forget to point retrograde with your rocket. That way you can ready yourself. Get rid of that trans-lunar injection stage that you used to deorbit. You don't need that now, because you need to land. Right, now that we're heading down to the surface of the Mun at very high speeds, let's have a look at the method that I was on about, which I have not done before. And this is it. Create a move node close to where your base is, and do a straight down move. Well, basically you want to cancel as much of your speed as possible, so you just head straight down to the surface of the Mun. That is the best and easy way I can think of doing a precision landing, and this is where I tested it. Now obviously you can see I've lined it up with the lander. I'm going to set my craft to warp to just before the burn, but look, the Mun has rotated slightly under it, so you're going to have to cancel that time warp, move the maneuver node over, so let's say we're guessing it, so that we're going to come down over the top of the base and hopefully land straight on it. Now obviously we're going to have to do some corrections as we're coming down to the surface. Just in case of that, I'm going to give ourselves a bit of an extra speed boost there, not cancelling the entire speed, so that we come not straight down but at an angle. That way you can adjust very slightly on what you're going to do. And you can see by here, I'm burning and I'm swapping between map view and the flight view, basically so that we can judge the maneuver node and make sure that we're going to come over the top of the base and not going to pass over it too much or undershoot it so that we don't get where we want to. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now let's consider what else we have to do, and that is the last burns that you'll ever do. Now you'll see the base is straight under us. This is awesome. This can't be any better, I suppose. But as you can see, we're not going to head straight down towards the base. So what I'm doing by here, I'm changing us from retrograde mode, or the SES, to stability assist. And I've angled us sideways, and you can see what's happening on the nav ball is pushing the retrograde marker away from the direction that we're thrusting. And that's handy to know. That way we can maneuver ourselves to head almost directly over the base. Now don't be too precise here because you're quite a distance up. The craft we're trying to rendezvous with isn't even in loading range for the game yet. Okay, so a little skip in the video, and what we're going to do here is a little bit of a time acceleration, and what then we're going to do is slowly kill our speed. Say like now we come down to 15 kilometers away from the target, and we're almost at 200 meters per second. I'm going to cut the speed down to 100 meters per second. You're going to accelerate as you're traveling towards the surface. This is normal physics because you have a gravity well on you, of course. And obviously we're not going to head straight for the base at the moment, so we're going to have to do some more adjustments. I'm adjusting sideways again. You can see the retrograde marker heading over the anti-marker for the base on the nav ball. By the way, we're pointing up, so do note that that's the opposite direction that we're pointing towards the target. If we were pointing towards the target, we'll be thrusting towards it and heading at a ridiculously high speed, so yes, be aware of which way you're pointing. And that is why we have a nav ball rather than you using the visuals on the screen. Okay, as you can see, I'm trying to angle myself so that I can push the retrograde marker. Obviously, I'm trying to get the correct direction to push the retrograde marker, and it's not easy even when you're using an apple. So after a bit of jiggery pokery, yes, we get the correct direction. The retrograde marker is now heading over the base again, so yeah, point retrograde again, just to make sure we're going to kill our speed, and hopefully we'll land close to the base. Now just keep on repeating this. You're coming down, don't forget to cancel your speed. There's one thing you don't want to do as well, is come down too fast and then find that you are traveling too fast for your rocket to cancel your speed and you crash into the surface of the man. I've done this multiple of times. Now I'm not sure if you can see it on YouTube. The particulates, or I forgot what you call it, the scattering stuff on the surface, the boulders, have started to load in on the map by here. So again, I'm trying to make sure that we're heading towards the base. Yeah, a little bit of sideways. I think we're a bit off here. One thing we don't want to do is hit the rim of that crater and tumble over. If also you pack enough fuel, you could always land close by, take off, land near, take off again, land near again. But this is the method that I chose for this landing, to get as close as possible. Now do note, this is not going to be a base where you're going to have everything connected. This is just going to be sort of like if you wanted a fuel mod, an escape capsule, or a mining rig nearby, or perhaps even a rover. This is how to do your landing close to the base. At least with a rover, it is handy that you can go out, you can land quite far away, and you can travel towards it. But don't forget, it takes longer for you to rove across the surface of the man than it is to fly across it. So yes, this is why rocket method is the quickest method. Okay, we're doing quite well actually. All you have to do now is, in the case here, is make sure you're not going to land on the top of it, and you just see me there checking to see if we had enough delta V in the tanks for a proper landing, just in case we have to move over, or as I prefer to call it, the bunny hopping. I think, anyway. Well, it's Easter, isn't it? So yeah, bunny hopping it is. So guys, this is looking like an awesome landing, and in fact this is much better than I was expecting. So at this point, I'm just killing the speed slowly, and don't forget, those landing legs are only rated at 7 meters per second for landing, so make sure you cut your speed under that. I always tend to go under 5 meters per second, because some of the parts on the craft are rated at 5 meters per second. Okay, so yes, ooh, a nice, almost gentle landing, slight bounce, but yes, we have our first base. Yes, you've got the separation a bit there, but that's easy enough done. So I'm going to unfold the solar panels, and we're going to get some of our Kerbals over to the habitat module. And yes, that's what this is. This is the lander for the first part of the base. This is the workhorse. And then the other module, I suppose, is the habitat where all the Kerbal beer will be stored, or whatever beverage you fancy. So yes, first off, I can't remember which Kerbal this was. I think it was Bill. We'll find out in a moment. But he's going to go heading into the hitchhiker pod, which I thought was handy because we're going to put 4 Kerbals there. Do note, if you're following this design, the escape capsule only houses 3 Kerbals. I forgot about that when I put Valentina in this, so we're going to have to do something about it. Yeah, this was Bill Kerbin. Anyway guys, this is how you create a base, just with pinpoint landing, no other shenanigans involved. If you wanted to get a fuel tank and whatever else on the surface of the man. I suppose in the next episode of this, we can look at about the way I normally do pinpoint landing. Also, we could look at how you're going to land a rover on the man, which I found quite hard when I first tried that. So yes, join me in the next episode. Leave in the comments what else you want to do, not in the next episode, but for this tutorial series. because it's quite easy once you get the hang of it, I find. Oh, look there, there's Jebediah's feet on there, all the treads of his boots. Anyway guys, all I can say by here is, from me and Jebediah, I'm Orbator. Trust me, I'm an engineer.